Hello, good morning. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, hello. Yes, good morning. Yes, I
Hello?
can hear you.
Good morning, ma.
Yes, I can hear you.
Can you see me too? Oh, great. Thank you. Please, can you see me?
Yes, ma.
Just that I can't see myself.
No.
Hello, architect. Good
We can see.
morning.
We can
How are
see
you,
you.
ma? Okay, I hope I look great. I can't see myself.
Yes, hi, hello.
In terms of, is the screen okay? I can't see
You're
myself.
sharing the screen. Yes.
Yeah, someone is helping me share the screen. Thank you very much. Okay. Yeah, architect, good morning. Thank you. Hi, Tanzania. Hello, Architect Joyce. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Good morning, ma.
Yes.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, everybody. We are delighted to meet with you again this month. This is the WAiC network. And if you are joining us for the first time, you are most welcome. WAiC is a capacity building platform mainly for women academics and postgraduate students in the built environment. WAiC is more like a support group where we help each other grow as we navigate through our career as academics, as teachers, and as researchers. We meet online every month to learn and relearn how to become better at what we do. At WAiC, we provide mentoring, capacity building, partnerships, collaborations, all to advance ourselves in our career. And today we are here again to listen and learn from people who have been quite experienced in the field of construction. Today we are considering a topic, gender responsive culture for the built environment, pathways to overcoming gender stereotypes. And what a joy we have some amazing women who will speak to us today from their wealth and depth of experience in the construction industry. In no particular order, we would like to acknowledge the presence of all of them. We would also like to say to them that we are proud of what they do when we look at their impact in the industry. We are only inspired to be better ourselves. So we'd like to welcome Zamageda Zungu, sorry. She's a lecturer at the University of Wits, South Africa, and she's also the founder of Isitelo Group, South Africa. You're welcome, ma'am. We also have with us builder Dr. Margaret Shaka. She's the national chairman and of the Association of Professional Women Builders of Nigeria. Ma, you are welcome. We have with us today architect Miranda Nuga. She's a principal architect and managing partner at Green Arc Designs in Malawi. And we also have with us architect Joyce Said. She's the programs manager at Tanzania Women's Architects for Humanity. Mas, you are very much welcome. And to the rest of us, I would like to say that we really do appreciate your commitment to our webinars. Your commitment to learning is indeed very inspiring, and we look forward to your thought-provoking and engaging questions at the appropriate time. We'll learn a little more about our speakers when their biographies have been read. But for now, we'll take an opening remark from Dr. Lee. Thank you very much. Doc, you have the floor.
Hello everyone, and good morning. Sorry for my voice.
Okay.
My name is Lovely Obi. Can everybody hear me clearly, please?
Yes, we can.
Good. It's my pleasure to also welcome you alongside Dr. Patience to today's webinar, which is focused on gender responsive culture for the built environment, pathways to overcoming gender stereotypes. This event is more than a conversation, is a part of a broader movement to advance career development and leadership for women in the built environment. So as academics, you and I, as professionals in the built environment field, as students, for some of us that are postgraduate students in the room, in a traditionally male-dominated field, we know the technical skills alone are not enough. To truly thrive, we also need supportive networks, we need mentorship, we need inclusive institutional cultures. Most importantly, we need visible pathways to progression. And that's why today's topic, today's focus is really very important. A gender responsive culture is not just about fairness. That's what I always talk about. It's about creating environments where women are not only present, but we're fully empowered to lead, to contribute, and to grow. It's about identifying how we can overcome the structural stereotypes that limit our participation and replacing them with systems that can enable you and I, to our voices to be heard, our research to be seen, and our leadership to flourish. And that's why I'm also proud to be a part of this network, the Women Academic in Construction WAiC. We know is a capacity building network for women and postgraduate students. We know we have the vision to nurture a vibrant, supportive professional community where we are all supported to connect, to get equipped, and to thrive in our career. It is a platform that will empower us as women in the built environment, supporting our networking and collaboration, which of course is all we need to be to progress. So today's program reflects that mission of WAiC in action. As women, academics, as professionals in the construction industry, we continue to navigate a field that is rich with potential, yet it is filled with structural gender gaps that is affecting our progression, affecting our visibility, affecting our voice. And I tell you that today's webinar, today's conversation is grounded in the idea that we would improve, we would be enhanced, we would get, the tips that we need so that we're not left behind in the room. It is to open our hearts to see how we can be recognized, how we can be valued, how we can be given room to grow in a room that is full of stereotype. So that's why we're here. So you have to ask the question, how can we build a more gender responsive culture? You can ask it. We will be here listening to people that have got the experience and have got the potential to provide some of suggestions and signposts us to those answers. What are the practical steps that we can take to support the career development of women in academics that are in the built environment? How can we commit? Today we'll begin with a keynote address that will explore these gender-sensitive cultures that we found in our institution, in our spaces, followed by a panel session that will feature a diverse and academics and professionals that will share their personal journey, that will share with us practical strategies, and that will give us insights on navigating and transforming the built environment from within. So I invite you today, do not just reflect on the barriers. Do not just listen to all the negative parts that we can hear about our journey. We want you to focus also on the possibilities that are abound. I encourage you to fully engage, ask questions, take note, connect with the speakers. Each of the speakers, our keynote speakers, all our facilitators and panelists, they're going to be bringing valuable perspective into this space. The conversation that we're having today, yes, it's going to start here, but we believe it's going to ripple far beyond this room. So this is a space where freely share your experiences, gather the insight you can get, gain the tools, and build meaningful connections that can support your professional journey. So once again, thank you for being here in this webinar. And I believe that you're going to have a swell time learning all the positive nuggets to get us all into the next level in our career. I now hand over to Alice, who will be reading the bio for all the facilitators. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Dr. Loveling, for such a beautiful remark. Thank you very much. Yes, Alice, you have the floor. Yes, before we go to the bios, please, just a minute. Just permit me to introduce to us Professor Ling. Thank you, Prof, for joining us again. She's one of our board members. Thank you, Prof. We appreciate your presence. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Gender is a very important topic to my heart, and that's why I'm here. But I can only be here for 1 hour because I have another engagement. Yeah.
It's fine, Prof.
All the
Thank
best
you.
to you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, you can carry on now.
Thank you, everyone, for joining today's session again. I know we can all see that it's really been something impactful. And I also like to thank all the organizers for having this program. It is my pleasure to share the impressive background and professional experience of all our speakers, and I'll just do that in the next 5 minutes. We have Zamanga Zungu, who is a seasoned construction professional with over 15 years of experience, specializing in construction law, quantity surveying, and contract administration and construction project management. She is a lecturer and PhD scholar at the School of Construction Economics and Management, University of WAiC, where she contributes to shaping the next generation of construction leaders. She holds a BCom law degree, a BSc Hons in quantity surveying, and an MSc in construction project management. She integrates legal, financial, and technical expertise to navigate the complexities of capital projects. She is a member of the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors, reinforcing her commitments to professional excellence in the built environment. As the founder and managing director of Itzeselo Construction Consulting, Zamangeda leads an emerging consultancy firm specializing in the commercial and financial management of capital projects for clients in the construction and engineering sectors. Her work focuses on optimizing contract strategies, financial planning, and risk mitigation to drive project success. She is also a member of the Construction Industry Development Board's Center for Excellence and Sustainable Construction Industry Growth, where she contributes to advancing research and industry best practices for more resilient and sustainable built environments. Her research explores construction industry resilience, construction law, and strategic management, providing critical insights and sustainable infrastructure development. She's passionate about leadership and knowledge creation, and she is dedicated to driving innovation and financial stability in the construction industry. Thank you very much, Zamangeda. We also have builder Dr. Margaret Sati Shwarka. She holds a PhD from the University of Jos 2014, and she is a fully registered builder and fellow of the Nigerian Institute of Building and fellow of Occupational Safety and Health Association. She is the current national chairperson of the Association of Professional Women Builders of Nigeria, and she has over 20 years of practical industry work experience before joining the academia. She has been involved in various classification, validation, and upgrade of national occupational standards for several building trades in Nigeria. She is an internal quality assurance manager, and she has been involved in construction skills trainings and assessment. She is involved in consideration of building environment standards for the Standard Organization of Nigeria and the African Organization for Standardization. Dr. Margaret is a seasoned lecturer and researcher. She is currently a chief lecturer in the Department of Building Technology, Kaduna Polytechnic. She has over 45 published local and international journal papers, conference proceedings, book chapter contributions, and a co-author of published maintenance management and technology textbook. Her core academic interest areas are construction procurement, health and safety at workplace, gender and work-related issues, construction technology, methodologies, and sustainability of urban infrastructure. Thank you very much, Dr. Margaret. We also have Miranda Mulaga, who is a registered architect with the Board of Architects and Quantity Surveyors in Malawi and a full member of the Malawi Institute of Architects. She is also a certified Prince 2 practitioner. Miranda holds an MSc in management, specializing in project management from the University of Lincoln, along with MSc and a BSc in architecture and diploma in architectural technology from the Malawi University of Business and Applied Sciences. She is the principal architect and managing partner of Green Arc Designs, an architecture and project management consultancy in Malawi. She's also served as the immediate past chairperson for the Board of Architects and Surveyors, Quantity Surveyors. Thank you very much, Miranda. We also have architect Joyce Said Faustin. She's also a registered architect with a bachelor's degree from RD University in Dar. She currently serves as the programs manager at the Tanzanian Women Architects for Humanity and works as an assistant architect at Alama Architecture in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. Additionally, she is a dedicated member and secretary of TAWA, actively contributing in initiatives that support women in architecture. Joyce is deeply engaged in mentorship and was a mentor for in the 2022 to 2024 Women in Construction Mentoring Program organized by the TAWA. She is also a founding member of the Pan-African Association of Montessori Architects, and she currently serves as its executive director. Her commitment to professional growth is reflected in her active participation in various construction workshops across Dar es Salaam, including the Montessori workshop, sand, cement, brick, and soil testing workshop, Dar glass workshop, and the Kanu workshop in 2019. In recognition of her innovative thinking, she was among the winners of the Challenge Fund Ideas competition in 2022, organized by the Atawasa Foundation, the Montessori Community of Tanzania, and Alama Architecture. Joyce is particularly passionate about sustainable design and low-cost housing solutions. Throughout her career, she has focused on designing community schools and sustainable housing within real estate development. Her approach emphasizes inclusive design, believing that the best solutions emerge through close collaboration with the community. Beyond her professional endeavors, Joyce is dedicated to humanitarian efforts, using her architectural expertise to create a meaningful impact in communities. Thank you very much, Joyce, and a big thank you to all our speakers today.
Thank you very much, Alice, for helping us with the biographies. Speakers, you are all welcome. The floor is now open. Zama, you have the floor. Alice, you can unshare, please.
Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. Well, for us in South Africa, and good morning, colleagues. Thank you so much for having me to discuss this very important, conversation. Before I begin, can I just verify if you can see my screen?
Yes.
Yes,
All right.
please.
Thank you so much. All right, so I know the theme for today is building a gender inclusive culture, but the title of my topic today is Blueprints of Belonging, a culture for the built world. And what I want us to talk about, I want us to think about the culture we have within the built space and how that impacts on women. So before anything is built, before any drawings are approved, before sites are even marked, what we have is a culture. And it is often this culture that decides who gets seen, who's protected, who fits in with this blueprint, and who has to adjust. And oftentimes you find that the people who have to adjust are the minorities. We often ourselves as well, who may be the minorities, not necessarily in demographics, but in representation, we are the ones who often, find ourselves having to adjust. But we also don't notice this gender bias in the design of our built environment because it's so embedded. If you look at how design happens, it's ingrained in the assumptions that people have of society. And how it shows up in these assumptions is it's assumptions about who's expected to be on a building site, who's considered when bathroom layouts are designed, and whose body type is the PPE actually made for. And that's why for me, this talk is not necessarily about structures, but it's about the culture that makes those structures possible, or rather impossible for those who are not considered in the structures. And to begin with, I want to, just give you this quote, and I wanted to resonate with you, not only for this webinar, but throughout your daily activities and work, school, if you're schooling. And this quote is, if space is sacred, then who we design it for is actually a declaration of who we protect. So to begin this talk, I just thought I'd start by setting out the problem. And I think I may have forgotten to enable the sound for sharing. Can you just confirm?
Gender
Can you hear
inequalities
it?
are built into our cities, from public spaces to service provision, transportation, land management, and housing. Current crises, from the pandemic to climate to conflict and migration, have made things worse by increasing barriers for women and girls and by exacerbating gender-based violence. While women and girls contribute to the economy and bear most of the household burden, they are underrepresented at all levels of decision-making, including in how cities are planned. Urban development interventions and infrastructure investments that are truly inclusive and which are created based on women's needs and aspirations are urgently needed.
Thank you. So that was just an introduction to the current problem that we face within the built environment in terms of a gender inclusive culture or the lack of a gender exclusive culture. So in the first slide, I spoke about who we're protecting. And in this slide, I want us to talk about, what could be or what we could build if we truly cared. Now, I want us to imagine a world where care is not just the afterthought, but it's actually the foundation where we start when we want to build structures. And in this world, we have safety, dignity, and access. These things are not just considered progressive because we use that word so much these days about progressive design, progressive work environments. But what if we had a world where it's not just progression anymore, it's actually considered normal? I mean, if you look at the topic of gender inclusivity within the built environment, it's been done for so long, and one wonders how long are we going to carry on being progressive? And in this world that I'm actually imagining, there are no workarounds, no hacks. We don't try and fix something after we've done it, but we do it right from the beginning. In this world, there's no need for a woman to ask where the bathroom is because it was designed for her. There's no need for a woman to carry extra clothes because you're afraid of being victimized at the taxi rank. There's no need for extra caution because safety is part of the blueprint. You're seeing alleyways with lighting. You're seeing security at night as you walk around your own environment, your cities, and your spaces. In this world, there's no need for you to adapt because the design itself or the space itself has already been adapted to the full reality of who uses it. Now, this world doesn't exist yet, at least not at scale, and at least not in our African context. It's worrying because the thinking is already here. Like I said, we've been doing this for years, for decades. The theory exists. The evidence of the benefits of actually having gender inclusivity is actually there. But what we're still missing is a culture that says care is not a compromise. Rather, it's a core design principle, meaning that this is something we have to do with intention. Historically, culture has always been something that's very difficult to change, and it takes a lot of intention and consistency in mobilizing a movement or a paradigm shift in a culture that exists. So, what happens in the beginning is when we are blinded or we have blind spots to these gender inclusivity issues, we tend to design for what we don't know, and also because we don't even ask about it. So the reality is that nobody sits and decides that in this building that I'm designing it to exclude women. However, the exclusion will still happen because it's built into the culture of how we actually design. And we often call neutral, which is this term, there's neutral design. And we've never questioned where the term neutral comes from. Because if you look at most neutral design spaces where they talk about gender neutrality, when you look at the actual specifications around it, those are actually based on assumptions. They are based on a specific user, I would say the male, but let's call this person a user for now. And this user is normally an able-bodied person. It's normally somebody who's not menstruating, somebody who's not involved in care building. And this is what they call the default body. And everything else that would need to be included in a design is therefore called a variation to what is considered normal. But I'm of the view that that's not normal, because if we are just looking at one particular type of individual, we are in essence then excluding the rest. And how did this happen? How did we get to a point where we've standardized a specific user? Where does that come from? And this comes from the assumptions we've had, the way modern planning and architecture has evolved in our world. Where initially in the olden times, the public sphere was always imagined as for the male. So they would be the ones considered in the city, the factory, the site. And women were only really considered more in the home, where the home was a bit more feminized, but it was also kept invisible, which speaks to some of the issues around the erasure of women. And this is how culture is actually ingrained. So when we started then writing manuals back in the days, the codes, the standards, we wrote them for the worker, who was then the male figure, and not necessarily the caregiver. We wrote them for the efficient body. We wrote them for somebody who doesn't have cyclical issues, who may need to rest at some point because the period cramps are so bad. We didn't, design them for caregiving, where we would have expected women to be traveling around the city with their kids. And we didn't question it because this was considered universal. I mean, you're born into this, you inherit the culture. So you don't even sometimes see that there's an issue with it. And Peters, in his research, found that if you look at just public transportation systems, and I know here in South Africa, we've got a big issue around women's safety, around public transportation usage. And Peters, in his research, found that 80% of global transportation manuals actually do not design for safety. There is no mention of gender in any of those manuals. To compound that fact, Greed also found that only 3% of construction sites globally are designed for women, not because somebody made the decision, but the issue here was that when the decision was being made, nobody actually decided to include women. So this tells us that we have to be intentional and conscious about making the decisions that we are making in our built environment. We also have the issue of PPE. Generally, PPE is made for the male body. And Gerard and Kleiner did a study, and it wasn't 2012 though, but what they found then, which is still predominantly the case in construction, is that PPE is generally made for the male physique. And how does this happen at this day and age when we see ourselves as a progressive society where we should have moved towards inclusivity instead of it just being an intention? And the reason most of this has happened is because we have confused absence with equality. So just because women aren't mentioned in the design manual does not mean that we're being treated equally. It often means that our needs are being left out entirely. And the mechanism in which this happens is that the assumptions that I've spoken about become the specification. The specification then becomes the buildings, and the buildings then become everyday exclusions. And these are not really accidents. I believe that these are just cultural blind spots that we may have entrenched in us because of the culture we find ourselves in. Until we name and change these assumptions, we're going to keep designing them in without even noticing. Now, we often talk about blueprints as if they start with just the pen. But I want to, challenge this assumption that blueprints don't begin with a person sitting on a laptop looking at its screen, but the real blueprint, the very first blueprint, actually is culture. Because our culture then reflects the values that we normalize, and this is what the design also reflects. We often assume that architecture and planning are objective and technical, and I would believe this is the same with any role you do in your profession. There's always an element of identity work, of who you are, that plays out in how you actually do your work. So I'm of the view that architecture and planning are not really just technical, but they're cultural. Because every time you choose a standard, every time you decide what's efficient and what's affordable, what you're really choosing is what you value. And in most cases, these values come from systems or cultures that prioritize productivity, control, and masculine norms. Think about it. Whose comfort is generally prioritized in public spaces, whose risk is managed, and whose needs are anticipated even before they, speak. Now, built space encodes social hierarchies. It encodes the social cultures we've got. And our cities, buildings, as well as construction sites don't just house people. We're not just contained with them. We're not just contained in them. However, they mirror power. They are blueprints of inequality. And Clara Greed, who I've referenced in the first slide, has done work to show that infrastructure planning really considered caregiving roles that most women perform. And what does that result in? It would result in seeing toilets in the wrong places. So if you're traveling in the city and you need to use a toilet as a woman, you may find that the toilet has been placed in a very dark alleyway where you are unsafe. That's because you're not considered in the design. You also find that you get transit that doesn't match real life routines. Do people actually do the studies of where the most opportune bus stops? What safety aspects can we also keep around where people are waiting for buses? Where do people sit? Are those benches comfortable for pregnant women? Do public buildings, take consideration that there may be women who need to change babies, who've got lactation that they need to do, or rest zones as well? Now, in African cities, this is further compounded. And if you look at examples like your Nairobis or Kampala, you will see that informal traders, who are normally the women who work at the markets, are not considered at all. There's no shelter, lighting, or sanitation around those markets. And this is probably because women were never really imagined as full citizens of an urban plan. And in short, what I want to say is the layout of our cities tells us who belongs and for how long. So without cultural change, the design solutions will always remain surface deep. We can't change exclusion by just adding a toilet or a ramp here and there or a nice painting to make it pretty. Those are just fixes, but what we need to do is we need to correct our foundations. And if we don't change these cultural values, we'll keep repeating the same errors. And this is why, for me, gender responsive design isn't only a technical matter, but it's actually cultural work. And it's cultural work that we need to do and we need to start doing. Now, how do these gender stereotypes happen? Where do they come from? Where do they stem from? And if you want to understand, today's exclusion, you would have to understand where it actually started. And something that came to me as I was preparing this presentation was vernacular architecture. Across a lot of African society, the home was never really a neutral layout. For those of you who come from, your rural homesteads, you can actually even picture this. If you look at how the layout is, it's actually a spatial map of gender roles where you have outer areas designed for male presence. So these would be around entrances, sitting rooms, courtyards, or your kraals where you keep your cattle. And these are normally associated with control, they're associated with visibility and access to visitors. Meanwhile, when you look at the spaces that were initially designed for women, such as your water points, your bathing areas, these were designed for function, but often hidden. So there was culturally an effort for the woman to be hidden at some point. Yes, these particular vernacular architectures had dignity and structure about them, but they also enforced a certain hierarchy of society about who comes first. These logics were also absorbed, into the colonium and modern planning that came above. Civic spaces were monumentally encoded for white male elites, and African women were completely outside of their imagination at that time. So if you see the cities, and especially the older buildings, when you look at things like our courthouses, our banks, and our parks, you'll find that the older buildings, the toilets are not in areas that are safe. The transport stops are not in areas that are safe. Also, there are no rest zones for women because we were never considered to be, part of the city, going to the city often. However, times change, modernization changed, but then modern values did not, change to accommodate the modernization. We were now allowed to work, but in terms of our building design ethics, we still did not consider that properly. So these stereotypes of who belongs where and to do what sneak in to our manuals and our specifications, where we see design briefs, they rarely mention care. The toilets are based on throughput, not necessarily privacy, which is something a woman would need. And construction standards ignore pregnancy or menstrual hygiene. And just a disclaimer here, this is not for all the buildings. I'm talking about just in general as the built environment globally. We're just not at the level we should be. Yes, we've started making strides towards achieving that, but we have not reached where we need to go. Right. Another point I want to bring across is when you think about the status quo and the background I've provided, one would be led to believe that women were not involved at all in the design. However, we were there too. We were deeply involved, but very much erased because of our culture and, the history of exclusion in women. But previously, women shaped homes, we shaped compounds, and we shaped communal infrastructure. We didn't just live in the space, we designed it, we mixed the clay, we carved the walls. However, we probably did not consider ourselves in the design because it's entrenched that this is what is normally the vernacular architecture. Therefore, we made buildings that look like other buildings. We got comfortable in what we know and didn't question the culture of what we know and how it actually perpetuates this culture that is not gender inclusive. So yes, we were always there, not as outsiders, but as uncredited designers of the world. And the tension here is that some of us now in this meeting, in our roles, we do have a seat at the table, right? Not a lot of us are decision makers, but some of us do have the power now to start voicing out these things, to start pointing it out, making it clearer. However, instead of changing it, we've learned to sit quietly in it. And this we see in construction, we see it in planning, we see it in procurement. You know, when we procure, how many of us who are tasked with actually drafting a bid specification or a design actually put in a line item to talk about gender inclusivity, a budget for gender inclusivity? How many of us in our specifications, even how we want the site layouts on the actual construction site, how many of us actually tell the contractor that they need to provide toilets for women? This is how the toilets should be. Do we actually look into that? And I'm not laying blame here. I'm just saying that, yes, representation matters, but sometimes I feel that when we have representation without disruption, we just replicate the old world. And I understand how this can happen because, like I said, we inherit these cultures and sometimes survival as well, because as women, let's face it, we've had to survive. Sometimes survival teaches silence. Sometimes we've learned that assimilation into a culture is the cost of access. So sometimes to feel like one of the boys at the board table, you would want to maybe behave like how they behave because you want to be accepted. And because when no one names the culture, we inherit it and then we build with it. And we've always been part of the story, but the question is, how do we then rewrite it differently? And will we rewrite it differently? Whether we've got, you know, the power to do so now or not, but in the little sphere of influence that you have, are you actually contributing to the change that you actually want to see in the world? And it's little things, it's conversations you have in public, it's conversations you have when you're in a meeting, you know, people just saying, oh, is it just one of those days when you come in holding a hot water bottle? And the fact that it's seen as it's a joking matter is what also perpetuates the culture and makes it seem as if it's not trivial. However, we do have issues that we need taken care of, and we need to be included in the design from the very word go. So we were there too. We are still here now, but the difference we need to make going forward is to be here not only in the physique, but being here consciously and actually contribute to changing the culture that we see. Right. Now, we often talk about how permanent structures, you know, are the built environment. And when we think about the built environment, we normally talk about permanent structures. But I want to say perhaps the most revealing space, one that exposes, you know, the culture in our construction industry most visibly is the construction site. Construction sites for me are not just technical zones. I believe they are cultural arenas. And there, every toilet placement, every uniform, and every break schedule reveals assumptions about who we think belongs on that site and who's expected to be there. I've spoken about PPE, but the point I want to make here is this is not just a, you know, a clothes thing. It's not just that we want to look nice, but we actually also want to be safe. It's a safety issue. So if I've got gloves that don't fit me properly and can slip out of my hands at any moment, this exposes me to risk. And this is the gravity of the issue that we're dealing with here. Toilets on construction sites, they are still an afterthought. Yes, there's been a lot of change. I remember when I started working, I worked on a site where I would have to walk at least about 2 kilometers to get to the toilet because the site was separate from the lay down area, and the only female toilet they had was in the lay down area. Now, I was told I was special because I have my own toilet, but in reality, this really affected my work. The time spent going to the loo, coming back, caused a disruption, wasted my time. The distance traveling there is also a bit far. Where I'm walking alone, was my safety even considered? So if there's a night shift and I have to go to the toilet, I'm walking in a dark alleyway getting to the toilet. The alternative of that is maybe don't drink too much fluid so that you don't have to go to the toilet as often, but can you imagine the implications of that on my health? So this is not just about safety gear or toilets, but it's also about, the language we use on site, telling women to toughen up, as if we are expected to handle harassment privately. And there was a report done by tradeswomen in Australia that found that 60% of women in construction had experienced some form of on-site harassment. However, of that 60%, only 11% knew a safe channel of actually reporting it. Now, what we need to understand is that inclusivity is not just a value, but it's a design task. It's something that we have to consider in every layer of the site design. And I'm making an example of the site design, but even in our workplaces, there are certain things that, do exclude us or do prevent us from actually having the same use and enjoyment that our male counterparts have in that building. Okay, so by now, I'm sure somewhere in your career, you've always heard the story, oh, she's so resilient. And yes, I do believe resilience is a very powerful trait, but in the built environment, I'm of the opinion that it's very misused because it's often code for you've had to survive things you shouldn't have survived. When people are saying she's been resilient, it means this person has been through a lot. But in the context of the construction industry, it's more about things you actually shouldn't have gone through. Whilst you want to be resilient to normal disruptions in your professional environment, yes, that's good. But when I have to be resilient to sexual harassment, I have to be resilient to not, having a loo. I have to be resilient to going and expressing breast milk behind a container. That's a problem because I shouldn't be doing that. And when we keep calling these women resilient, what we're actually doing is we are actually applauding a woman adapting to neglect. And when we praise it without changing these conditions, we are actually rewarding harm. So we don't ask why, these spaces are how they are. Instead, we are being told to hang in there, to toughen up. And I must be clear about that. About this, the built environment must be redesigned, not only because or not because women aren't strong, but because we don't need to be strong. Nobody should have to be strong in order to belong. Can we just belong without having to, get super divine strength? Can we just belong? Can spaces be made so that women can belong? So resilience without structural change, what I believe it is just another form of silence. Again, the voices of women seem to be silenced through these things of hang in there, toughen up. No, yes, this happened to you, but we're going to handle it privately. We're not going to tell anybody about it. So that perpetuates the silencing of women, which is actually also another reason why we're seeing the stats being what they are in terms of representations, in terms of seats at the very important tables. It's because of the silencing of women. And even when we do get other women to progress to those levels, because they are still also represented, that cycle of silence still continues with those women then being in those tables. So we really, really need to get to a point where we adapt or change the situation. And how do we do this? Because if the past reveals absence by design, then what does the future look like? What would it mean to build a world where care, belonging, as well as dignity aren't just special features, but they're called actually standard practice? My belief is we start with gender sensitive research. And you may ask, but when you started this conversation, you spoke about how it's been done. Yes, it's been done, but let's also look more into not just identifying these barriers, but start researching on ways on how to actually improve it. Yes, my fellow scholars have done some research in this, but we need to continually engage with the people who use the space. We need to understand the caregiver in her role as a caregiver. How does she need the space to be designed? How do women move through cities? How do trauma survivors experience design? You know, it's not enough to just say the design is user-centered. We must ask who are the users. But over and above that, the next thing I believe we need to incorporate is an inclusive co-design, where real inclusion is actually incorporated by sitting with those people affected from the very beginning. So bring them in at the very early stages, bring your end users in, have them tell you how they experience, you know, design and how they would like to experience design. And what I'm talking about here is not just saying just bring only women in, but I'm saying we should open up our minds to the fact that we've got different individuals with different needs, and let's be more inclusive about how we go about the process. We must also rethink some of our technical specifications and design briefs. My counterparts, my fellow speakers, will maybe attest to this in terms of technical specifications and design briefs. Because when we adapt this, there is change and it's being seen. So in Vienna and in Sweden, there was a gender mainstreaming that led to practical updates. And these things, I don't believe are things that would cost an arm and a leg. Sometimes it's just a mindset shift. What they did in Vienna and Sweden is they widened sidewalks, created better lighting, and adjusted bus routes. And for them, that really improved, you know, how users experience that environment. Construction sites as well need to change. I've discussed the issues around, you know, construction site, what needs to be done. But more importantly, we need to build in dignity, especially for the woman. It's really, really tough. I've worked in very remote construction sites where sometimes you don't even have like the option of immediately leaving. Maybe let me give you a personal example of what happened to me. And this is where I felt that really my dignity was not considered or even, you know, catered for. And this was when I started working. So I was a fresh graduate. It's my first job, less than a year of working, less than 20 years, no, not less than 20 years old. I'm about 21 years old. I am told that I'm going to be posted to a remote site. It's a mining site very far from Joburg. And remember, I'm a new employee, which means chances are I would have had only money to get to the site. And when I got to the site, they were supposed to pick me up. I had to drop off at a petrol station. I get there and there's nobody there. I call them, they say, oh, I forgot. And then they come to pick me up. But when I'm picked up, yes, I've had to stand here in this petrol station where anything could have happened to me. It's at night, there's no security there. That's one aspect. But what really threw me off was when I got to the said accommodation, I was expected to share a house with 7 other male counterparts. I mean, how does that happen? How do we let a graduate, you know, go through that experience? I didn't have a choice for the night. I had to sleep there. In the morning, I emailed HR and told them I wasn't comfortable. And the response I was given was that it's it's more economic to have one house. So we can now hire another house for you. And after speaking to my mom about it, because well, I had to call my mom then, we decided that I'm just going to go home because I really was not feeling safe. So I had to leave that job to return home and look for another job. And this is how far these things can get when it comes to dignity. And sometimes these are blind spots. And the person I spoke to at HR, the person who gave me that reasoning was a woman as well, which could be shocking for you. But this is what I mean when I say sometimes the seat at the table means you now have to adapt the norms, you have to adapt the values of the other people who are there. And I'm saying we need to challenge this, we need to change this. When you see something wrong happening, speak out about it. And that's how we actually drive change in the built environment. Then we also need to look at hiring and procurement. We need to ingrain this gender inclusive consideration into how we do procurement. So like I spoke about, build in the gender aspect into how we tender for jobs. Make sure your contractors are complying. Make sure the building is complying, because other funding institutions have done that as a way to actually force people into the culture change. If you look at how the World Bank and the African Development Bank is now also financing certain projects, they actually require to see gender inclusive design, and people have been forced into doing it, because sometimes you have to force people into doing things, because until they absolutely have to, they're less likely to do it. So where you are in a position to be able to, make that change, I really, really implore you to do that. Right. So, yes, I've spoken about this. There's only a few of us in these meetings, and I don't know how many of us actually have real power in organizations to make these changes. So, we need to create a business case that convinces the people who can make the decisions that this is the best way to go. And for decision makers, I think that's when, this would click to them. That inclusion is not just ethical, it's economical as well. And I'm going to explain how in the following points. So there have been studies that show that companies with diverse team outperform homogeneous ones in terms of innovation as well as problem solving. And if you want diverse teams, you need to make sure you are somehow retaining your people. So if you're seeing a lot of women leaving the built environment space to pursue jobs, it could be even in academia, where I felt sometimes the site culture is too harsh for me, so I opted for academia as well. It means you're losing out on that diversity, which could actually improve your organizational performance. So inclusion improves retention, and when we have PPE that fits, toilets that are usable, harassment is addressed, you're more likely to stay in that environment because you've been catered for, you've been made to feel like you belong. So design for inclusion has also, been shown to prevent litigation. There's a case in Australia where women kept lodging complaints about safety issues on the public transport system. And that safety feedback was ignored for a very long time. And eventually, the Transport Authority faced numerous lawsuits because of multiple assaults in badly lit terminals. And I'm sure there's been issues as well, or cases as well in construction where harassment has happened and the organization lets it happen, where the employees have actually, instituted legal proceedings against their employers. The user-centered or gender-centered design also boosts the return on equity. The World Bank did a study as well that showed that gender inclusivity in design had greater space efficiency and user satisfaction, which then led to better performance by their employees. So what is the bottom line that I'm trying to come to in the slide is that, inclusion doesn't slow us down. It actually future-proofs our work. And sometimes the resistance that we're getting doesn't necessarily stem from the fact that people think these tasks are too hard to do. It's just that people don't even want to think about it. It's a fear of change because people assume this is going to cost me money, this is going to do this. But when you see the benefits against how much it actually costs you, and if we ingrain this in our systems, these are things that are going to be there. So eventually the economic impact, which I feel is not that much, is negligible. It's just a matter of, are people wanting to do this? Are people willing to do this? And as I bring my presentation to a close, I just want to remind you of, remember how we started when we were imagining a city that doesn't exist. Now, what I want to say about that city is that it's not just a dream, it's something that's very possible. It's already been prototyped in small scales in countries like Bogota, Vienna, Nairobi, and some other countries as well. So the challenge is it's not whether we can do it, but it's whether we're willing to change the culture that builds our environment. And design without culture can be just a decoration. However, when we design with cultural interrogation, intention as well, and care, that's when the real transformation happens. It's not just about adding women into existing systems, it's about unlearning the defaults, the stereotypes, the assumptions that come from, inherited culture, and rebuilding with different assumptions, writing the spec so that the inclusion is not the fix, but it's actually the plan. So this city, it's arriving piece by piece, but it's only if we collectively keep insisting that it does. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Zama, for a very beautiful presentation, well delivered. You did speak a whole lot about gender inclusivity in the built environment. And when we truly look at the issues of care, safety, dignity, access for women in buildings and cities, one may need to question truly, like you said, who our cities actually built for. You spoke about how that our sites are not designed for women in terms of restrooms and other conveniences. You talked about the PPEs. It's something you said, though funny but true, that it's not like we want fancy clothes, but that we want clothes that we wear and we are safe in. You also spoke so much about our transportation system, transportation routes, safety issues, women lactating or breastfeeding, consideration for pregnant women, a whole lot, markets being well lit, and a whole lot you have really mentioned. And you also try to, you also pose a challenge to women who have found themselves in some leadership position, how that they should try to make a case for other women. Thank you very much, Sama. We are grateful for this presentation. Now that we still have quite some people in the room, I think we'll just take our pictures before we move on to the next presenter. Esther, can you handle this session for us?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Well done, Sana. So, can we just open our video icon so that everyone see each other? Please, can you all open your video? I'm not seeing a lot of people. Hi. We still have a lot of people that the video is not yet opened. Okay. Okay, you're popping up. So let's keep on opening our video icon. Thank you. So, taking the pictures already. Yeah. Sorry, the network is slowing down loading of pictures at my own side also. Okay. think I'll just use this other one. I'm sorry.
Are you having some challenges?
Yes, just a follow.
Sorry, please. Hello, Esther. People's smiles are waning off. Are you done? Have we taken the pictures? Esther, our smiles are expiring. Can we take the pictures and be over with? Esther, what's happening? Where are you then? I can't even find you. Where are you? Okay, let's go. 1, 2, 3. Let me help her from this side. 1, 2, 3, go. Can we see WAiC? WAiC with a smile, a broad smile. Thank you. Good. Yes, let's have it again. 1, 2, 3, go. WAiC. WAiC. Good. Great. 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 Yeah, thank you very much. Much appreciated. We can then move to the okay. Just one more. Okay. Yes, thank you very much all. We will now move on to the next presentation. Move on to the next presentation. Yes. Madam Margaret, Gilda Margaret, the floor is now open for you.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, ma'am. We can hear you. We can hear you. I'll share
I want
from here.
to, yeah, you can hear me?
Yeah, okay.
All right. I want to thank the organizers for this opportunity to contribute a little on the topic gender responsive culture for the built environment, pathways to overcoming gender stereotypes. So I'll start by just giving a little explanation on the concept of gender and gender responsive culture. Gender, as we all know, is a term that has come to be accepted as a social construct. And it has been accepted as a social construct because it is seen as something that is being shaped by the society, by culture itself and by history. Sometimes the influences of the media also affect it. And the concept of gender is something that is dynamic because it evolves with time due to responses to different individual experiences, to events and happenings. A gender responsive culture for the built environment is something that I see that can be discussed from two perspectives. First, we can discuss it from the perspective of the participants on the side, on the construction side, or the built environment participants in general. And then at another perspective, we can discuss it from the end users. And I think the first speaker has dwelled on that perspective, from the perspective of the end users of the built environment space. And in regards to gender responsive culture, generally, it can be described as a culture that recognizes that there are barriers or differences or discriminations and inequalities between women and men that must be addressed. The aim of a gender responsive culture is to eliminate all gender-based discriminations and stereotypes, to ensure fair visibility in the workplace where men and women enjoy equal rights, equal opportunities, and equal responsibilities. So a gender responsive culture seems to give opportunity for equal representation. But we see studies have shown that women are underrepresented in the built environment in general, even though it varies depending on professions. Like if you look at town planners, statistics have been given that you have women up to 30%, architects up to 30%, estate surveyors up to 40%, and so on. But when you come to people like professions like land survey, the statistic drops to 15 to 17%. And for builders and engineers, statistics drop to about 11 to 14% globally. So we see that the building profession and the engineering profession, they lag behind in equal representation. Stereotypes in the built environment abound in the built environment workplaces. And most of the time they start from an early stage and they remain, unfortunately, throughout one's lifetime. At every point in time, women face stereotypes. You know, at least 70% of women in the built environment have faced one form of bias or discrimination or the other. There are several stereotypes. Even as a young girl, young girls are discouraged from going into STEM related subjects on the premise that women cannot perform very well in technical jobs, you know. So when you come to hiring, that's another big challenge that women face, recruitment or hiring. You know, there is always a preference given to men. Like I remember when I graduated in the 90s, I met 3 very big construction companies in the FCT for employment. And they told me clearly that their policy is that they do not employ women. And I was very shocked and surprised because that was the first time I ever thought something like that will happen, you know. And somehow that perhaps influenced my decision to go into the public sector and pick a job with the Federal Capital Development Authority. You know, there are a lot of other biases. The gender bias language abounds so much in the built environment. Sometimes women face gender-based violence on the construction sites. They are beaten up, physically beaten up. Sometimes they are not given a paid parental leave. I know of a lady that put to bed, and because she stayed more than the 1 week annual leave that was given to her in that construction company, she was fired. You know, so women face a lot of problems. There is gender pay gap also. And one of the most difficult one is the inflexible work hours, because it's one of the major reasons that women decide to leave the built environment and go into other spheres of life. There's also denial of promotion and leadership roles because of preference for men. When we look at gender responsive culture from the perspective of the end users of the built environment space, we know that every profession in the built environment has something to contribute in accordance to their own role. The town planners need to be more sensitive and build more inclusive cities, while the designers also look at how to build more inclusive designs, you know. So the key principles for this concept is that there should be equality, inclusivity, safety, and participation by all, everyone, all stakeholders. So one of the major tool, I will say yes, a tool that the site manager or the builder can use to achieve an inclusive built environment is through his site layout plan. A proper site layout plan will help take into consideration the needs of the diverse users on the site. You know, a good site layout plan will not only ensure that there's adequate space for materials, men, machines, and work operatives, but it will also give a safe access route, you know, pedestrian route, walkways, where individuals will not be harassed, will not be vulnerable to harassment along walkways or along dark pathways and so on. So there should be some adequate visibility, adequate lighting on the site, you know, so that the whole construction site can be viewed and be seen at once. You know, it will help to reduce all those harassments. And one other thing is to have secure changing rooms, because I remember an unpleasant experience on the site. On one of the very big projects, I walked into where the men, close to 100 men, over 100 men, were taking their shower, you know, after closing of work from the site. And there was no any designation that, okay, this is where they will shower or whatever. I just walked into all naked men and I was really embarrassed. It was an experience I will never forget. The way I walked and left that place, I don't even know how. They just pitied me, you know. So it's good to have separate sanitation facilities also for the different gender on the site, where they can have their rest, where they can pray and so on. And clear signage on the site can help to avoid confusion and those kind of experiences, when it will facilitate pathfinding or your wayfinding on the site. Also, in managing gender inclusiveness on the construction site, need to develop site safety and security policies that are inclusive. Our guest speaker has talked of an inclusive PPE, you know, something that will suit all types of gender, and also a risk assessment on the site that takes care of the concerns and the needs of everyone on site. There should be some training of site workers, training on emergency responses, so that everyone will know what to do, both men and women and the disabled and so on. We know what to do in case of any incidences. Once you have a good site layout, you're able to achieve a very significant proportion of an inclusive site. This site layout is something that needs to be reviewed, monitored, and updated regularly, so that at every point in time is taking into consideration the needs of every gender. And the suggested pathways to overcome gender stereotypes in the built environment. First of all, I will say through education and training for all stakeholders. When I mean all stakeholders, everyone, including the client himself, the contractor, the consultants, the investors, and everybody, they need to have a gender training so that they can understand gender design and construction practices. If they don't understand it, nobody can challenge it. But when all stakeholders understand this, they are able to challenge the stereotypes in practice and even in design. And it's important that all stakeholders understand the needs and benefits of gender equality in the built environment. Gender equality first must be seen as a human right, you know, that should be enjoyed by everyone. And it is essential for economic prosperity of any society. And it also enhances the health of all the workers on the site. So training will also help stakeholders to understand the importance of a gender responsive communication. You know, the language that is being used in the built environment is patriarchal, is biased against women. There is need for a gender neutral language, even right from the classrooms, you know, in the textbooks, the pictures, the posters, the flyers, everything that is used either on the classroom, on the side, at least they should know the importance of having a gender neutral language. And there is need for them to understand also, so that it will everyone will help in removing the unconsciousness bias in hiring that limits the opportunities of women. You know, every time you go there, even if it is for a contract or supply or consultancy work, or even as an employee, there's always preference for men. Women also, and everyone concerned, must sustain advocacy for policies and legislations on the following: gender mainstreaming and equal opportunities for all employees. We should have a clear guideline for implementation of work-life balance that makes these inflexible work hours to be official, because I've stressed that this is one of the major reasons that women don't want to work on the construction site. You go to a very remote site, you come back home, your family is suffering and so on, and you suffer some disadvantages on the family front, and even on the side, they are not satisfied. But if there is a flexible work arrangement, so that you start your work when you want, you end it when you want, even you can compress your work into 3 or 4 days instead of 5 or 6 days in a week, and so on. So that will help women. And there should also be legislations on disparity in pay on equivalent job roles in the built environment, because sometimes they believe that the men are physically stronger, so they will work harder, so they deserve to earn more than a woman. But I don't think it's all about strength. If it is the same job role, women should enjoy the same. And if we have such legislations already existing, I think there is need to strengthen enforcement of those forms of legislation. And there is also the need to establish mentorship programs in the built environment, because sometimes just the mere fact that the built environment is predominantly male discourages women from even picking employment. Women do not see a role model that they can imitate or desire to be like. So the mentorship programs will help to provide role models, opportunity for knowledge sharing, networking, and the career advancement of each individual. So also media engagement, media and community engagement. This will help in promoting awareness of the society at large and collaboration on diversity and inclusive issues. Finally, I will also say that research and data collection needs to be encouraged constantly, so that areas of improvement should be identified, and initiatives that will help in sharing inclusive design and best practices should also be shared. Thank you so much. That's my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ma, for your brilliant presentation. Thank you very much. Please, let's note that the floor, we can start putting our questions in the chat, or noting our questions or comments as our speakers continue to make their presentations. Thank you very much. Now we would have Architect Mulaga. Ma'am, you have the floor. Architect Miranda Mulaga, the floor is open.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Patience. Thank you for WAiC for allowing me, for including me in this very exciting webinar. These are issues that indeed we need to continue discussing, because the more we discuss, the more we realize the need for us to take deliberate effort and to include ourselves in the space.
Oh, you're muted. She's muted.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. Did you hear my opening remark?
Yes, we did. We did.
Okay. Okay. So thank you so much, WAiC, for having us. I am Miranda Mla, representing the architects in Malawi. I have with me my colleague, my friend, my fellow architect Catherine Sani is also attending here. I just thought I should mention, because we are few, but we are taking up this space. So why discuss the gender responsive culture in the built environment? The issues of gender, the participation of women in the construction sector, built environment, have been there since post-World War II. And yet to date, this construction industry is seen as a man's world. It's still seen as a man's job. Why are we still struggling like this when women have participated in the construction sector? As our guest speaker, Sama, said, we were there even during the primitive time. We were there. In fact, my grandparents, my grandmother, I used to see her participating in constructing the family home back then when I was less than 10. But still, it's not seen as if it's a woman's space. Our contributions are not being taken into account. So where does it stem from? In my understanding and in the research that I did last year, I noted that these are issues to do with culture. As it has already been said by the speakers before me, our culture seems to entrench the issue that as women, we are not fit to be in the construction sector. We are not seen as being strong enough, that we cannot construct. We don't have the strength to carry wheelbarrows. We don't have the strength to carry bricks on a construction site. We cannot work during odd hours. This is even despite that we've had change in the way work is approached after the COVID-19. You still find that employers, they will ask these questions: are you able to work extra hours? On the interview panel, it appalls me that men ask these questions to women, underlining the fact that men still feel that women cannot fully participate in the construction sector, in the built environment. These are cultural norms that have been entrenched and that need to be challenged. We also considered that we're not creative enough. I remember I was in a group where we were with a number of colleagues, and people were having a conversation, and this conversation really annoyed me, I should say. They were like, can you count the number of women that challenge you? I mean, why should it be an issue that they should count the number of women that challenge them? A woman should not be seen as a woman when they are a profession. A professional is a profession, whether they are a woman or not. So these are issues that we are having to deal with each and every day in our workspace. And women are also seen to be at risk of being sexually abused at work. This is whether verbally or even actual harassment. It's not just a perception, but also it happens as Margaret, as Dr. Mark highlighted her experiences in the construction sector. So we need to rise up against this. We need to deal with these issues. I am aware that these are issues that will not just disappear overnight, but these are issues that we really need to challenge and do something about. I was just looking at my own experiences in Malawi, which I believe is common to so many African countries and even beyond Africa. Women are having to do with cultural biases from the tender age when they are young. When a child is born as a woman, as a girl, they are seen to be like homemakers. You are resigned to the fact that you are going to grow up and take care of the home and not necessarily go to school. So you'll find that from a young age, a tender age, women have to overcome these biases, these culturally entrenched biases that sadly they also come from family members. Fathers, you'll find that I have heard of a story more recently because I also work a lot with young people in secondary schools, and now I've even extended to primary schools. I've heard of a story where a young girl was saying, I cannot continue to go to school in this day and age, right in our city in Blantyre. She was saying that her dad told her that he doesn't have money to send her to school, and she could not continue going to school. This was a girl who was 15 years of age. And it saddened me to see that in 2025, we're still having to deal with these cultural biases. These eventually affect the number of women that will participate meaningfully in the built environment. The cultural biases that come from even our caregivers, our family members, not wanting to spend on us because they don't believe that a woman can come back to help the family. And what has this then, how has this affected the industry? The effects of gender marginalization are that there's low enrollment of students into the built environment. I remember during my time, uh, I went to college in the late 90s to early 2000. We were only two girls in our class. And I completed college 6 years later with only two girls in our class. And the whole school of architecture, we were only five girls, five uh, female students undertaking architecture. And this was not just limited to architecture, even quantity surveying, even professions like civil engineering. In civil engineering, I remember during my whole time in college, there were only 6, if not 7, female students. And this is just a reflection of how we deal with our children, our children from an early stage. What are we telling them? And as I highlighted earlier, I did a research 2023 to 2024. And in the research, it was a qualitative study. The women that I interviewed said, we have come to be where we are because one said because her dad purposed that she is going to be in sciences. Another one said she had a teacher who believed in her. So you see that from an early stage, there needs to be a deliberate effort to inculcate in the girl children that they can do it, they can make it. The other effect of gender marginalization is the leaky pipeline. Kujao in 2017 and other studies found that there is a low retention of professionals. And I can attest to this even right here in Malawi. We're finding that it is becoming more and more common to see that students graduate from the university and a year or two later, they'll move out and go on to do other things. Some will even leave and stay at home. Sad to say, even in my own office, I have experienced this year, where one member, because I have made deliberate effort to mentor younger upcoming professionals, especially women. And one of the young graduates, a lady, she resigned. And when I asked her, she said, "No, I just want to go home." I tried to negotiate with her. Then I realized that this had an issue to do with her at home. And these are issues that we are dealing with, we are faced with. I tried to explain to her that we can make your working hours flexible, but the decision had already been made. So I'm just highlighting that this leaking pipeline is happening and it has not stopped. It continues to affect our participation, our impact in the built environment. There is reduced creativity in the built environment. I like what Zama said in the opening presentation, that you walk around and you see all these things that appall you, that alarm you, like a nursing mother. You go to the shopping mall, you will find there is no space for you to sit. That is deliberate for you to sit and nurse your child. If there is, I have found that the spaces are incorporated in the washrooms. Why should I sit next to a bathroom to nurse my baby? These are coming up because of the low participation of women in the built environment. The designs have been left to people who don't understand what it means to carry a baby in a shopping mall, a crying baby who needs to be fed. And I don't want to give my baby a bottle when I can breastfeed them. And there is a lack of inclusive design. With us women, generally, because we are sensitive, we are caregivers, we are sensitive, we tend to be more inclusive, not just to women, but also to other marginalized, the young people, the youth, other marginalized groups. We tend to be more sensitive. But we have had for the longest time, and we continue to do so, to have designs that are led by male dominance. So it's like the norms in design have been left to men because of this gender stereotyping. Poor working conditions. I think it was Dr. Mark, she mentioned of how working conditions were. Zama also mentioned that she was made to a young graduate at 21, being sent to a remote area to work in a place and be made to accommodate, to sleep, to lodge together with young men. This was sexual harassment. This was subtle sexual harassment. And it is happening because of stereotyping, because the people that are meant to take decisions that are favorable to women are not there. They have been left out. So these are effects of gender marginalization in the built environment. We are having poor working conditions, and generally, construction sector is not seen as a good employer. At least in my country, you'll find that people who remain in employment, they will either go to corporate organizations where they will not be doing design work if they're architects. They will not be doing frontline design work. They will just be there monitoring work projects, which is not bad. There's nothing wrong with that. But sometimes they will take those decisions because of the conditions that they've had to face in the workplace, whether it's in contractors or in the contractors organization or consultancy firm, the conditions are the ones that are not favorable for them to progress in their career within the spaces that they would have loved to be. And how do we overcome this stereotyping? It's not easy. It's not going to happen overnight, but we can take steps. And I just want to add my voice to the two presenters, powerful presenters that came before me, that we need to incorporate inclusive design principles. It has to be principles that guide our actions. These principles must be incorporated in our standards, that there should be inclusivity, not just inclusivity in terms of disability, which is good, but women need to be included in the design principles. We need to develop standards that are sensitive to the welfare of women. We need to take deliberate action to allow women to be provided spaces that are safe. I also experience it a lot. I'm just adding to what also the previous presenter said. It feels very unsafe to walk on a street which doesn't have lighting. It feels very unsafe to walk on a street which is deserted, like it doesn't have buildings. We have so many times seen, like for example, the city that I live in, all the central business district, the business activities are concentrated in one place. And then you have residential development in other spaces. For you to move from your residence, from your residential area to the business area, it takes a while. What is happening in between? When people knock off, it's a deserted area. It becomes unsafe. But when we incorporate, we make deliberate effort to incorporate the designing with women in mind, we will realize that we can't continue to have these business districts that are separated from residences because they create unsafe zones for women to operate. We also need to have our local authorities, government budgets, they need to be gender inclusive. LIMAC in 2024, in their research, they found that it is possible for governments to do that. In fact, it is being done in Kigali, Rwanda, where budgets for development in the city of Kigali have gender included in them. So if a budget already includes gender inclusivity, that means implementation will be easy. It will not be a thing that you hear that, no, we cannot allow that space, extra room, we cannot allow that extra provision because budget will not accommodate it. Naturally, it means that women must also be involved in the decision making. These are things that we have said several times, but we are moving, but we also need to take deliberate effort. Even us who are here, when we are given the space, we need to challenge the norms that are often male dominated. How are we challenging those norms? How are we how are we contributing to challenging the norms? I'll give you an example. Our firm was commissioned, I think it was in 2022. We were commissioned to do a business park. They just wanted it for feasibility study, how they could use that space. And in our design, we designed this mixed use that was bringing in accommodation residences. When we went to present the concept, the proposal, the board was very surprised. So you mean this is possible? There was quite some resistance, but some members, they looked at it and they were like, no, this is the way to go. It was not part of the brief, but we just brought it in because we felt that this would create safe zones in the business district. And since then, that client has come back to us several times to give us commissions because they felt that we had brought them new ideas that were speaking to the social fabric. But I must also say that I think it was by grace that on that board, there were 3 very influential women that influenced the decision of the board. Though the project didn't go ahead, but the project was approved. So we need to influence, challenge the cultural norms. We were challenging what would have been a normal design business, a standard business park, which would just have commercial spaces, offices. But we said, no, we need to bring in residences. Our public spaces, how are we designing our public spaces? For my fellow architects here, even all of us here, because we are all involved in the built environment, urban planners, how are we designing our public spaces? I go to a church where we don't have space for nursing mothers, and I have been to our pastor, to our resident bishop to say, Bishop, we need space for nursing mothers. We can't continue to have nursing mothers sit outside when church is happening. They are coming to church, but they're missing church. They spend the whole 2 or 3 hours taking care of their children outside because people can't stand the noise of a 2-year-old, a terrible 2. So we need to challenge those design standards, whether it's a standard, it's not even a standard. And recognizing the challenges that women face in the built environment is also a key issue. You know, half of the problem is that all this discussion that we're having, you will find that sometimes men don't accept. In the research that I did, some of the participants were actually men. One of the male participants that I interviewed, when I questioned them that, do you think that there's the gender discrimination or gender stereotyping in the construction sector? And they said, no, I don't believe that. And this was a highly educated man doing well, and they could not agree to the fact that these issues exist. So we need to recognize that indeed there are challenges that women are facing in this built environment. So I asked that participant, so on your site, where are the female toilets? Are they done in a way that a woman would be comfortable? And he could not answer convincingly. I asked, so when you're buying protective gear, do you make sure that there's protective gear which is specific for a woman's size? He could not give me a specific answer. But meanwhile, in his understanding, his perception is that women are okay. The built environment is conducive for women. The construction sector is okay for women when it's not. So these issues need to be recognized. We need to accept that we have problems so that we can start acting on it. I think this I'm just highlighting and entrenching what I had already stated. We need to incorporate women's voices in policy formulation. And this one goes to us being more educated. As we are getting more and more educated, we need to create space for others as well. We need to invite them to the table so that policy formulation is not leaving women out. I'm glad to say we have a good example. Myself and architect Sunny, Catherine here, we are involved, we are at the forefront, involved in the review, or is it repeal and enacting of our act, the Architects Act in Malawi. And it is we feel duty bound to ensure that the act that comes into place incorporates gender sensitive issues. It allows the space, the issues to be entrenched for women to participate more productively. We should avoid portraying certain roles as male appropriate only. Why should we be saying a woman architect? It's an architect. It's not a woman architect. It's not a woman engineer. It's not a woman QS. It's just a QS because their degree doesn't have Miss or Mrs. at the start. We need to increase visibility of women. These forums are some of them, but also in our spaces, in our various spaces. How are we encouraging the visibility of women? What are we doing? What programs have we put in place to improve the visibility of women? When I say visibility of women, I'm specifically highlighting women in the construction sector. In our space, you will find that as women, we are not really given, the women in the construction sector, we're not really given platforms. So we've started to work towards it ourselves. We are trailblazing because we believe that if we don't do it, no one else will. We're demanding the space. Whenever there are functions happening where architects could be, we find ourselves there. We actually call each other and say, Kathy, are you coming? Miranda, are you going to be there? If one of us is busy, can somebody go and attend? We make sure that we are there and improving the visibility so that our voices are heard. The more they see us, the more they will hear us. We need to acknowledge contribution of women. I like what our guest speaker, our keynote speaker, Zama said. The contribution of women should not be ignored. Even when they are just cooking at a construction site, they are making sure that those people are strong. they are able to work. The contribution, or however the contribution comes, we need to acknowledge it, because it's in acknowledging the contribution that will improve the impact. And what are the benefits? I highlight the benefits, especially on the design side. I like that there are also benefits that have been highlighted in this webinar in terms of business case. In terms of the design of spaces, we add nuance to our design spaces. All these things that we're talking about, shopping malls not having spaces for children, for nursing mothers, those things come with us women because of our sensitivity to being caregivers. We need to have better welfare. I mean, the benefits of having more women in the sector will have better welfare of project team members, because women are generally more inclusive leaders. They are better leaders in terms of their inclusivity. Women, it's very rare occasionally to have women who are just dictatorial. They tend to be inclusive. They tend to allow growth around them. And strategies, some of the strategies that I believe would help to overcome the gender stereotyping as I close: role modeling. We cannot overemphasize role modeling. We want to be the people that we see. I will tell you of what happened this week. On Sunday, I had participated in a TV program, and it was beaming on the national TV. My niece was the first one to see it, and she went and asked her mom to take a picture of her standing in front of the program with me in the background. And this is just speaking to what role modeling is. It begins at such a tender age. What we do, we will encourage the younger girls to join the force. We need to be supportive as family members, as teachers, as bosses. We need to be supportive to those who need to progress in their career, to those who need to grow. I am speaking to us because many of us here, we are already taking up the space. But what are we doing? We need to go an extra mile, like what we're doing here. Beyond these webinars, how are we networking? Beyond this just meeting once a month, are we able to network? Say, Dr. Patience, we have a project here. I think your skills fit here. These are the things that we need to do. And in terms of favorable policies, I've already mentioned, and improving visibility of the sector. The more visible the sector is, the more they will realize how important it is, and the more they will realize what it means to have women participating in the built environment. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Architect Miranda, for your presentation. We also want to acknowledge Architect Catherine for supporting Architect Miranda. Thank you very much. You did speak a lot. You mentioned the fact that numbers actually matter when we talk about gender inclusivity. And you tried to mention the fact that you noted that the people who are supposed to help include gender, to help with gender designs are simply not there because the pipe is leaking. Young girls are no more, many of them are not attracted to the industry, and those in the field are bolting out because of the issues they are facing. You also noted that our cities need to be safer, and that has to be done deliberately and intentionally. We need to include safety in our designs and in the designs of our cities. And then you beautifully made this point, the need for influencers. And you made that point when you made the example of the women that helped to positively influence the proposal you made at the board. And that is very important. As women, we need to see how, particularly those in leadership roles, how we are not just, permit me to use for lack of word, figureheads, but actually seeing how that when we get into leadership positions, we see how we use that position to benefit and really create enabling environment for women to thrive. Thank you very much, Architect Miranda. And to the rest of us, let's not forget that we can keep thinking about our questions and getting them set for the question and answer session. So let's quickly get on to the last presentation. Architect Joyce, the floor is now yours.
Okay, thank you so much, and thank you for this platform. I'm really happy to discuss this topic as a member from Tower, and we really find like this is a topic that we are working on, and from the experience and the presentation that I'm going to make will be like elaborating on how Tower is trying to provide pathways to the gender stereotypes. So I'll present on the main challenges that we are getting as women in this construction industry, which is known as a male-dominated industry. Is that it's known as the male-dominated industry. Also, women lack the leadership positions, especially in the decision making, and also the designs are also ignoring women's safety and needs, and the exclusion of women from planning processes. So I'm going to share on how Tower is providing different solutions to overcome all these challenges in the construction industry. So you can all see my screen.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yes, Tower stands for Tanzania Women Architects for Humanity. It is based in Tanzania, and for us, Tower works more with marginalized groups, especially the women, children, and the elders. So with the women, you are trying to change the narratives of that the construction industry is for male. So as Tower, we are chipping in to bring in more women in the construction industry and to make it more for all of us. It's for all the people, not for only men. So as Tower, we work with the women, we train the women to become local funders, the skilled labor. So we start from the on how even to make the bricks. So all these women participate in all the processes, and even on how to determine the type of soil, how to make these bricks, and go to construct a home. So we find like that since we started in 2021 this program, we have already empowered more than 100 women in this, and some have already got employment in the construction sector, and they're also getting jobs at the construction sites. So we are trying to change this narrative that it's for the only men. And after how do we empower these women to make them more confident, to make more like believing that they can build, they can do anything in the construction industry. So after training them for about 6 months on how to make the bricks and construct a home, we give them certificates. So believing that they can go anywhere within the country and apply for a job, and they get employment. So this is how we are trying to challenge these gender stereotypes in the construction industry, by believing that by empowering these women, also giving them like the tools to start the construction works, giving them certificates to move around the country and apply for jobs. It also gives them the courage and confidence on also keeping working in the construction industry. As you can see the image, there you can see there are 2 men and 2 women. So they're doing the roofing work. So after being trained, these women are also connected with different contractors. Here is an example of the women who were employed in the construction of a classroom block. It was in Ifakara, Morogoro region. So these women were trained from the vocational training center that we have here in Tanzania. After being trained and given a certificate, they were able to secure jobs to construct. And through this, you find that also the trainers that we are using to train these women, we also encourage them to keep on working with these women. Whenever they get other jobs like other construction sites, we make sure that for you to get a position to train these women, you must you must give a dedication to TAWA that you will also have to work with these women on other sites that you'll be working with. So this is how we are trying as TAWA to create different pathways to these gender stereotypes in the construction industry. And that is how also a woman was employed to construct it, and she was doing the finishing work. So you can see how confident she is, she can do it. And this is also part of empowering them, making their economy, and also building their capacity as women in the construction industry. And this image shows, yes, you can visit different sites in the construction. You'll find like men are many, but what TAWA is trying to change now in the construction industry is that also women will be found in the construction site. So through the trainings that we are offering to these women, giving them certificates and also advancing their trainings by attending government institutions, here we call them VETA. So they get confidence and they are now capable of being of participating in the construction in the construction site, and they find like, okay, also the contractors are now accepting, these men are now accepting working with these women. So we find like through TAWA we are trying to create different ways on how to make this construction industry more inclusive and creating different spaces for women. And besides that, in the construction, we also have the mentorship program. And some of the speakers say that, I think the last, Akimilanda said that within her class, you find like there were few girls, and after completing the bachelor or their degrees, they drop out, they don't practice. So as TAWA, we have created a connection. We have connected a bridge where these young female professionals in the construction industry are connected with the experienced women in the construction industry by doing the mentorship program. So we have the mentorship, women in construction mentorship program, where we connect women and these young professionals. So they find like they have sisters, they have role models to look at and keep on pushing and resisting all the obstacles they're getting through their construction industry. So by seeing their role models, all these sisters whom they're connected with, they keep on, they get passion and believe that they can also participate in the construction industry. And through the mentorship program that these girls, how do we build the confidence to them? How do we make them feel like they're special? You can do it in the construction industry. We do have a celebration where we have the graduation. So the mentorship program is run for 2 years, and after 2 years we close the program officially, but they continue communicating with their mentors informal way. So they get certificates and they can be used, they can also be used to improve their CVs. So we are even hearing, like, we get testimonials from these mentees. Some are getting employment. They are like, they work with their mentors on how to create a CV. So a recent graduate from the university is trying to navigate herself in this male-dominated industry. But so with the sister or the mentor that she's connected with, now she's capable of creating a good CV because she has a sister to help her. So this is making them like more resilient in the construction industry, and they keep on exploring and enjoying their career. And as TAWA, yes, we can see that now the world is starting to recognize the efforts of women in the construction industry, whatever women are doing. So, and this year we were able to get an award from the World Habitat Awards in partnership with UN Habitat. So this award, we got this award after designing the decent homes. These homes were built by women. So we got these awards in with 3 categories, where It's through the women empowerment in the construction industry, where we empower women, we train them to become fundis, skilled laborers, and they construct homes, low carbon homes. So this is also another category that gave us a recognition. We got the recognition from, and also the sustainable design. So you find like through this recognition, we are giving, it is also giving confidence. It is giving us courage that whatever as women we are doing in the construction industry, people see it and they recognize it. So we believe that as different ways we are creating to provide the pathways to for the gender stereotypes in the construction industry, and the recognitions we have started seeing as the world is now seeing whatever we are doing, we believe that maybe in 10 years to come, there will be no men at work. There will be people at work. And in Tawa, we have a slogan, we say, we are women are builders. So where does women are builders come from? We believe that when women shape space, they shape societies. So that's where they believe that women are builders come. So as for us, Tawa, to ensure we are in the race, in the campaign to make sure that no one is left behind in the built environment. So this is what Tawa is doing to provide pathways for gender stereotypes in the construction industry. Thank you so much, and this is the end of my presentation.
Thank you very much, Architect Joyce. We truly want to celebrate you and the team at Tower for all this amazing job that you're doing to see how gender stereotypes is being reduced in the built environment. And the major take home for me from this, your presentation, is that we can do this a little at a time. You know, we can one step after another. Okay. Even as members of WAiC, we can begin to think about how we can start advocating for more for girls, you know, to come into construction fields. We don't need anybody to commission us. Just the secondary schools are there everywhere. You can just take up one thing at a time to do. You can mentor those in the students already in the university to encourage them, you know, so that they see a mentor in you. And we can also think about how we can train. We may not have the skill. We can partner with men, how we can train women, just like you're doing here. It's just amazing to see all these that you are doing. And I want to believe that on this platform, we have people who have been inspired by what Tower is doing and see how we can broaden this work across our various regions, all to the end that we see that women are empowered and there is and gender stereotype reduces to the barest minimum. Thank you very much again for your presentation. And now the floor is open for questions and for comments. You could raise your hand if you want and just unmute yourself to speak, or you could just put your question in the chat. Since we are waiting for questions. Yes, Winnie, you can unmute yourself and go ahead.
Thank you very much. Well, I'm so excited for such a wonderful webinar that is organized. Congratulations to all organizers and also the keynote speaker and the participants. Well, actually, I will not have a question, but I have a comment that I really recommend for having platforms like this, because this has taught me that the the movement, the change, it starts now. And when we join women in the construction industry from different parts of the world, from different parts of Africa, we can actually move this, and we can start seeing the number of women are going in the construction. Well, and actually in this session today, like we're joined by I can say our fellow like sisters. I can say we are like different sisters from different geographics, but surprisingly, we are facing more or less the same thing in the construction industry. So this makes me, it also motivates me and inspires me that if I'm seeing other women thriving in the construction industry, then I can too. And also, I'm also I can say influenced to even like move a lot of force, a more force of women, of my fellow, I can say colleagues or students who are in the construction industry to like grow further in the profession. And do not fear, do not be afraid, because when we are together, we can actually move on to we can move far. That's what I say. So thank you very much for the insightful webinars and all the speakers. You're doing a great job. Keep on inspiring more generations to come.
Thank you very much, Winnie, for your kind words. Yes, the floor is still open. Questions, comments, contributions, clarifications. My question, okay, Joyce, yeah, please, free. You're free. You have the floor.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much. I do not have a question, but I also just have a suggestion and a comment. Like for us here in Tanzania, as Tawa, the mentorship program is open and it's done internationally. So today, we had some British speakers who are architects and quantity surveyors. So we really encourage, if you're capable of joining this program, and since we are all in the rest of empowering women, young professionals, to make the women in the construction industry to feel more comfortable. And I've seen that all the speakers who have been together, we have been together in this webinar today, have the experience and they are successful. So we really invite you to join in the mentorship program so that we may keep on inspiring young professionals or young female professionals in the construction industry. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Joyce. And we would appreciate if you can send us probably a link. You can send it to me, I could share maybe a link or some more information on how to join, to go about the mentorship program.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you
someone
so
is
much.
already asking.
Yeah.
Yes, once she shares it, maybe she'll share it on the platform, but if not, I would get across to people on WAiC and those that have registered for the program. Yes, Vicky, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. So I wanted to ask a question related to, we've been talking about the gender stereotypes, and especially I heard a lot about work-life imbalance, especially on the part of the females. And right now, in Australia, at this moment, in the health, especially with health and safety, most people have been researching into psychosocial issues or psychosocial hazards, which deals with something like work-life imbalance and harassment, sexual harassment, discrimination, gender pay gaps, and the likes. But I wanted to ask that sometimes I get confused as to where we stand. Are we saying that due to especially with work-life imbalance, are we saying so as women in construction we can't perform those roles, or are we saying that should we cut off, especially if we're saying work-life imbalance? Now I saw research where males are also saying they are also family people, and also because of construction stuff they can't, there's also that imbalance. So sometimes I got confused as to where we stand. Where do we stand as in saying work-life imbalance? Are we saying we can't do the work, Or are we saying that if we should cut off the work and let the males do it? Where does the work-life imbalance stand? Sometimes I get confused. So I just need clarification on that work-life imbalance. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So our speakers can please feel free to respond. She needs clarification on work-life imbalance. Is it because do we cry about this because we can't fit in? Or is it because we need some space? Is it because we need some more consideration? So the floor is open for a response here.
Hello.
Yeah, please go ahead.
When we talk about work-life imbalance, it's not as if we cannot do the work. We're not saying we cannot do the work. We're only saying that let us do the work at the time that we want. Yes, we can start at 11 a.m. instead of starting at 7 a.m. But instead of closing at 4 or 5, we can work a little extra. Let it just be convenient for our own schedules so that our families do not suffer. We also do not suffer any mental health breakdown, but we are still achieving, we are still meeting our target. That's why I mentioned compressed work days. Instead of working maybe just 5 or 6 hours, you can work up to 8 or 9 hours in a day. It's possible, just as it suits you. Or instead of working for 6 weeks in a day, you can work for 4 weeks, but you're working for 4 days. You're working for longer hours within those 4 days. So you will still achieve your goal. You can collaborate with your co-colleagues on the site. You take this day for me, I take the other day for you. That is why collaboration is needed, even in the work-life balance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lizzie. Vicky, I don't know if she's answered your question.
Okay, I get that, but here's the case with the workforce with the women. So it can be classified into, let me say, two, where we have the women professionals and we have the tradespeople who are working on site. So let's say I would say in terms of what our speaker just said, if that works for, let's say, the professionals, how about those who are on site, the tradespeople who are on site, and they can't do anything about the flexibility to work? Because once they come with a project's lifespan, we're supposed to finish this and move to that and move to that. So in that instance, as a trades worker, you don't have a say as to how maybe a professional would have a say. So then how about the tradesperson? How does the work-life balance come in for the woman tradesperson on site? That's another thing.
Okay, we have Joyce. Please, you can respond.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much. I think I would like to respond it according to the experience that Tower we had, and we were trying to solve it because we are working with the elite women, like the women from the rural areas. So at first we were getting problems like women could not come for the training or at work because they had children to take care of. And sometimes the husband was also they were getting problems like the husband is hindering the woman to get out of home because he is telling him like, why are you going to work and you are leaving the children at home? So we at first we experienced a very big drop out of the women participating in our trainings and in the construction, but later on so here that comes the like designing spaces which considers women's safety and needs. So at our center, we built a children's space. So women are allowed to come with their children, and while they are working, their children are being taken care of. So even the sites, even the construction sites are outside our center. So the trainers we are working with, the contractors we are working with are also learning from us. Like whatever site they have, they need to consider a safe space for these women so that they may take care of their children and other stuff. Also, we also involve the community. So we work with the women, we discuss with the men, and also we can now see like the narrative is changing. The men are supporting their women. You find like the man is also taking a bicycle, riding a woman to a construction site, making sure that the woman reaches area at the workspaces. And after the job, the man is coming to pick the woman. So we are trying to make this, to create the awareness on how like as a man and a woman, you can collaborate together to make sure that we also like increase the economy of the family.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Joyce, for your contribution. We still have Zama. You can feel free to contribute.
Thank you, Dr. Patience. I was really struggling with where to raise my hand, not really familiar with Zoom. Just on this work-life balance thing, and a lot has already been said by the two previous speakers who just answered this question. But what I want to add is that where organizations believe in certain things, they can make the changes. I know now when you look at construction, you're thinking, but how are you going to be, working half days because work needs to progress? But there have been cases where, for instance, in your Madagascar's, where it gets too hot in the day, they do break a day up where from maybe 12, they stop working and then they'd come back onto site at around 4. So the same way they can do those allowances for weather, there should be a way to do those allowances as well for a woman to go and maybe pick up her kids from school, make them some food, then go back to work and continue with working. And where work doesn't really require you to be there in person, I feel the emphasis should be more on deliverables than it is about how much time you actually spent at work. The issue we have is we've still got people who are still very rigid in terms of management. You're micromanaging where they want to see bums on chairs and they don't even care much about how much progress you give. As long as they see you there every day, it makes them happy. However, I do feel that especially COVID pushed us, over that curve of saying people can work flexibly and the work can still be done. As a matter of fact, what I've seen is there's more abuse now coming from the flexible working hours because people feel like they can reach out to you anytime they want to. But if there is work balance and there are laws as well around work-life balance, I think it's very important because we still do get managers who would want to contact you outside of working hours, expecting you to do something quickly for them. I mean, if it's something serious for an organization and something that, could not have been foreseen, maybe I can consider entertaining that. But it's also a matter of you yourself being strict about how much you give to the job and how much you don't. The other things that we still don't consider, but I've been to a couple of talks now where it's also coming into play. It's things around neurodiversity. Some people, because of mental conditions, and some people don't even know, they're neurodiverse. You don't know whether you've got autistic tendencies or you're on the spectrum. And sometimes you find that when you do certain things, people at work don't understand you. It's like during a meeting, there are people who will sometimes get up and go look outside at a window. And, people can look at that as if it's so disrespectful. But sometimes that person's mind just works like that. There are people who don't have a sense of time, like they're just out of touch with sensing time, and then they do work when they can. So there have been instances, even in your Muslim type of communities, you find that all organizations there close on Friday early for people to go to mosque. So if we can make those allowances for certain items, it means we do have the flexibility to be able to do that. It's just that maybe people see, offering women those flexible working environments as not important. So the message again is reiterating and pushing the culture bias and making people understand that it's actually also as important. The care for the woman and the needs of the woman is as important.
Thank you very much. Yes, Gilda Debussy, let's have you. Gilda Debussy, the floor is now yours. Okay, let's have Architect Miranda.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm just adding a voice to the flexibility being possible if people make the choice to. In fact, if it weren't for our bosses being flexible, for architect Kathy and I, we wouldn't have qualified, because the time that we were doing our professional stage program certification 15 years ago, or it's now 18 years ago, our boss, for myself, I was lecturing at the university and I was doing the professional practice program. My boss said, I understand your goal, your vision. I had to double up my work because I needed the finances and also the career growth. And my boss allowed me. So I would come in the office, work until 3 o'clock, and leave the office, go and tutor at the college. Catherine, she would come in the morning, knock off at 12. If we have site visits, then we would do, for myself, I would do reschedule my classes. So it's possible. Of course, I know the emphasis is on people on site. Because of that experience, like for myself, I insist on my sites where I'm managing projects. I sit down with a contractor and make sure that there are women are given the space. If I note that on site, women are not being given enough space, I will pin down the contractor. Why are women leaving this site? And what are the issues? Is it an issue that they're not being paid well? Can I see your payroll, your wage bill? I want to see it. So I pin them down. That's why in my presentation, I emphasized on it begins with us who are seated here. What are we doing in the spaces that we are in? What changes are we implementing? So people now know we have a project where we're doing a rehabilitation of part of the main referral hospital here in my city. And the first meeting, the contractor was telling the guy, hey, the architect is me. I just know that I have to align to the social issues. To the social issues, because men, they will just look at the technical aspects and think it's okay. But with us, we know what it feels to be left home without a job. We know what it feels to have to take care of children. So it's possible. It just needs to be done deliberately. When we begin to do it in the projects that we are managing, in the projects that we are structuring as the decision makers at strategic level, it will change. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think our time is fast spent. I don't know if there are any other questions.
Hello.
Oh, yeah. You're on the floor now. You can go ahead.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes, I was trying to move the other time.
It's fine.
Okay, so I just want to kind of add to what have been said before. My name is Dr. Adebisi. Okay, so going down the memory lane, I remember when I first got employment into a construction company. And even before then, my first IT as an undergraduate, we were turned down. I and my colleague, she's also a female. In fact, they didn't know that we are female. They gave us the letter of appointment to come and do the internship in there. So the day we resume at work, they were like, "Oh, women, no, we don't employ women here. Everything just about male. We try, we argue, and then that's how we have to go elsewhere to do the height in an indigenous company, construction company." So later, when I got work at the construction company, in fact, the technical manager there, he also is a builder. He like make the work kind of flexible for me, saying that I'm a woman. So he told me that Saturday is off and I should not be coming to work on Saturday. But the day our director knew about it, that was when he stopped. He said, I know, for his company, everybody is seen as male. I'm as male, so whatever work that is done, there's nothing like a discrimination that you are a male, whatever, everything, you just have to do the one. It was not really, you know, it was not convenient for me because then I have two kids then, and one of them was still, and I mean, it's all like more or less. So, and all the work then it has been on my husband has been supportive, whatever. But then what do I do? It was not really easy for me. And morning, the time schedule there is morning 8 o'clock to I think 5 o'clock then. And for my own schedule of work, I was a yard manager then. I don't have time. Maybe at the time I'm close, that's when they will come to me that one grader or one machine here somewhere has broken down. I need to go back to the office to arrange how they're going to, you know, the financial aspect or whatever. So it was not really easy. So my own suggestion or advice that if there's any way, you know, that the management or the owners of construction and company could be talked to, they can, you know, a way of sensitizing kind of, okay, for them to imbibe diversity management or diversity, to value diversities in the construction, you know, company, construction industry, to go a long way in helping, because the argument is women, they have different, they pass through different moods, the monthly period, whatever, so you can't really, you know, at times that they can't really bring impact positively to the construction work. Of course, your colleagues on site, they may want to like understand, you know, understood the situation. Like I mentioned, the technical manager that was really, you know, helping that time. But how about the management? So I think if we could, you know, in a way, focus on that. Once the management, you know, realize that, of course, they will be able to drive, you know, diversity as in allowing the female gender to strive where as a pertain in construction. And then I also want to say that like where in Abuja, there's a particular place in Abuja, in Cuba here, you know, it's women. They are not skilled. They are not skilled in construction work. But I don't know, because I interviewed one of them. If I could remember, is that she just learned the work sparingly somewhere, and they are doing fine because it's a locality, community. Okay, they realize that when they contributed money for the men, for them to construct the road, maybe to fill the pothole, whatever, the men, you know, they embezzle the money. So these informal skill workers, I would call it, they just came on that no, they have to, you know, do something. And they're all women, and that's how they started. And as time goes on, because they were being, you know, persecuted, let me use that word in quote, by the male counterpart. So they have to involve the police. So it was even the police that will come around, and what they'll do is that they kind of install a toll gate, just a mini one. So all the commuters buy those are driving what they call it, vehicles and different kind of vehicles. They collect money from them, and it's from that money they used to maintain you know, to maintain the road. And now, of recent, now they stopped operating. And when I asked, I was told that there was like maybe a kind of sabotage or whatever because of the hatred that they have for them. So there was an accident, and two of them, of the leaders there, that's the women leader, they were affected. And because of that now, you know, the work will not really continue as well. So what I'm trying to say is that one, management of construction companies, they need to be talked to, they need to be sensitized, and also the society as a whole too. The society as a whole, because the society believe that it is men that will give them the results. Even if a lady go to meet them, you have to argue and argue, they will still prefer that a man should do their work. So that's just my the full contribution. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Adebisi. Thank you for adding your voice to our webinar today. I think we have come full circle. Our time is really fast spent. We'll just quickly take the vote of thanks and then we'll wrap up. Okay, Esther, the floor is open.
Thank you, Dr. Patience. We've come to the end of another webinar. We thank God for the success. I want to appreciate all our speakers, starting with the guest speaker, Zamangaja Zunku. our beautiful guest speaker. Sorry if I didn't pronounce your name very well. Thank you so much for the beautiful presentation you've given us. We are so grateful, and I'm sure everyone here has benefited, and we are well enlightened as to what to do when it's in terms of gender sensitivity and how we can, work towards the stereotypes, to reduce the stereotypes, and then what we can do to actually eradicate so, and the participation that the women can put in for us to be able to be visible. We have said that when we see something, we should be able to speak out as women so that we too can be part of the policy to begin the change. So when you are in the position to make a change, we should be able to do so. Thank you so much. We love what you have given us. And then we also thank Builder Margaret. We are opportuned, we are highly honored to have you, Madam, the National Chairperson. We are grateful for your insightful presentation. From your presentation, I also want to say that the stereotypes, I got the stereotypes from an early age, just as you have presented, from the early age, because I was the first female in my family. I had boys all through, 4 boys. And so when they are working at home or doing any, and we had a lot of people living with us. So when they are doing any work at home, especially on Saturdays, my father would want all of us to do some cleaning, environmental cleaning in the compound. And as a child, a girl child, I always want to, join them. And they would say, oh, go and sit down, you're a girl. So from youth, from the tender age, I've been challenged. I always feel, why should they, limit what I can do? So that has been in me, where by the time I got to secondary school, I was bent on doing what a man can do, a woman can also do and do better. And that motivation has always been in me. So thank you for your presentation, very insightful, thought-provoking. And I know that a lot of us are benefited from it. Architect Miranda Molanda, thank you so much. We love your presentation. Also, you have told us to take deliberate actions, to inculcate confidence into our girls. Recently, yes, we normally go out to secondary schools to do career counseling so that most of these girls will pick interest in the construction industry. Recently, just about a week ago, last week, Friday to be precise, the Association of Professional Bodies in Nigeria went to Ojuabode in Ogun State, and we had career counseling for about 8 schools. And when we gave them a little test of what was presented, it was a girl that gave us the total dose of everything, most of the things that was presented by all the speakers. So I had to encourage her, and I gave her a token, collected the parents' account number and gave her a token. Someone too also, did that. So it's good for us to encourage girls, and that will lead me to Architect Joyce. Thank you very much too. You emphasized on mentorship, and we love what you're doing. Thank you for that. And I'm so happy with the picture you showed us, where we have women who are proud of what they are doing. The skill, probably they are laborers, but then they are proud of what they are doing on site. It's good because that will curtail women from doing all sorts of ill jobs. I'm sure they are proud to be able to put food on the table for their family, to fend for their family and support their husbands. So this is what we should be doing, encouraging women, encouraging girls, to do skills that are meaningful, that will help them. So, and then, like you said, we need to put efforts in women to empower them. So thank you. We can't thank you enough, all the speakers of today, and even those that have contributed. And you also said we should appreciate women. Yes, it gives them that encouragement, that motivation. I just want to say this because we have also said we should play our role to incorporate as professionals. Every one of us, we should incorporate that's our professional duty in imbibing, the culture, this gender inclusiveness in the design principles. I remember when I was coming back from Canada, I came back recently. My daughter, we had a stopover in Amsterdam, and my daughter needed to breastfeed. So we had to go around to see if they had a nursing area for women. And lo and behold, it was fantastic. And I thought, when will Nigeria get to this stage? It was fantastic, honestly, so comfortable, not just one, several, like 2 or 3 different apartments, that designated areas. So we as architects, even as quantity surveyors, if we see a design that has been made in churches, public places, that such has not been, incorporated, we can raise a query. Oh, why are we not having this? Check the architect specifications. There are no urinals. You go to some toilets on site. The same toilet that the female will use is what the female will use. You can understand how the men, you can't sit on the on the WC because you would have seen, urine. So let us raise queries. Let us be able to bring in inclusiveness in the design, principles according to our own roles, the professional roles. So I want to say we have gained a lot here. We have learned a lot, and we have acquired a lot that we need to go and imbibe in our culture, in our profession, in the society, in the female folks. So please, let us all put all this to practice. Let's not forget. Let's know that in any position we are, we should be able to contribute our quota. And we have said that we should increase visibility. So we are really appreciative of all this we have learned today. I particularly have always gained in this webinar. And I want to thank God again for this webinar. And I want to appreciate everyone here who has taken time out to join this webinar. And I also say that please let us try to tell others. We need many more people to know what we are doing here and to be able to also benefit from what we are doing. So I want to say thank you to everyone and those behind the scene. Thank you to the technical crew. Thank you, Dr. Patience, again, for what you are doing. God bless you and God bless us all. See you next month. Thank you. Over to you, Dr. Patience.
Thank you very much for the vote of thanks. We are closing now. I don't know why I'm echoing. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, though we don't have one.
Okay. So we want to thank everyone again for joining us this month. Special thanks to our guest speakers. We appreciate you, honestly, we do. And when we come around for collaborations or advice, please oblige us. The conversation will continue, either in terms of research, or we'll see how we can move what we have learned here into policies that will be implemented in our various regions. And to all our participants, we appreciate you. we need to go back again and listen to this presentation again and again. For those of us that are in the research space, we'll see how these can become research ideas and see how we can broaden the frontiers of knowledge in the area of gender research. So we hope to see you again next month by God's grace. We'll share the information about the webinar in our through our networks. Thank you again and have the very best of the day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
and God
Thank you.
bless.